All right, so thanks everyone for coming out this evening. I'm Mike Rolo, and I'm here to introduce before we get started, I just wanted to give a big shout out. First of all, thanks to the Opera House and the folks at TCAPS for helping sponsor tonight's event. Big round of applause, please, for all of those support. That's better place at TC Newtek. So, also want to say, hey, we got a great turnout from the Titans West Robotics team. Congratulations, number two out of 40 in their first competition downstate at college this past weekend. Well done. Congratulations. So this is an exciting evening. So back in 2008, way back in 2008, it seems like such a long time, pre-COVID, there was a bond proposal that was passed, and as part of that bond proposal was funding for STEM and robotics labs for TC West and Central. And so here we are tonight. That's coming to fruition. This is happening. And so as most of you know, we became aware of some of this activity back in December. There was some discussion at the board level about using some of the funds that had initially been allocated for robotics labs for some other purposes. And so a group of us had stepped forward to express some concern. And I just wanted to recognize Dr. Van Wagner and the TCAPS board for their support and reassuring us that they intended to honor the commitments made under the 2008 bond proposal, and to make sure that we have the best state-of-the-art world-class labs that are envisioned. So I'm really excited that Dr. Van Wagner and Eddie Skodak are here tonight to present. We're going to start this off with a presentation outside of robotics labs, and after that we'll open up to Q&A. So everyone here is passionate about STEM, not only about the robotics labs, but also about programming. And we could probably be here for hours and talking about all of that. So tonight we want to keep the discussion focused on the STEM and robotics labs themselves in discussions with Dr. Wagner. He's assured us that this is the start of the conversation, not the end, and there will be opportunities to talk about programming at another time. And so we're really excited to be re-engaging with the district regarding STEM, so without further ado, I'm going to open. Please welcome Dr. Van Wagner and Skodak.
So good evening. I want to take the time to say to all you, appreciate you showing up tonight late and having the opportunity to see a lot of the culmination of the work that we've been working on over the past few years of trying to look at the best way that we can honor our STEM programs, our robotics, our Symantec, all of the programs that we have in TCAPS to make sure that our students have some of the best facilities in our state, and that we have a truly state-of-the-art facility, and a facility that our community can be proud of, but also that is on display to our community. One of the things is I started to get into this is almost the end of my third year as superintendent, is how can we make sure that this is the centerpiece when people come to our district, they see it. It's not something that's in a far corner or a far back or a separate building. We wanted to make sure both of these at both Traverse City West and Traverse City Central High School are focal center points as people walk into our facilities. And so we're really excited about what we think we've been able to do with that design. These are literally fresh off the press designs. Those of you that maybe had the chance at the table to see the papers, literally the first kind of rendering that we were pretty much at a point of happy with, we got it about 3 o'clock this afternoon. So literally that design process is in that. We've been through many renditions of different things that we didn't think, was as quality as we wanted. Maybe they have some key components, and we even still have a little bit. You're going to see, for instance, in the West Senior High designs, you're going to see, you're not going to see restrooms there like you're going to see in the Central High ones. We think that's imperative as people are coming in and out, that's close, and so we're still working on trying to figure out how to incorporate that into or in a hall directly across. Where at Central it was a little easier, there's one there and we're able to add another one. So we're still in that phase, and so that's an important part of tonight, that we do have sheets of paper and sticky notes out there. If there are any little thoughts and things that you have, if you go through just questions, wondering that is important for us to think about, I'd ask that you take the time to just write that on a sticky note so that we can take that back as we sit with our architect, our construction manager, and be able to say, here's something that somebody brought up that was a really good point, about even this doorway, if this was just shifted over there, or you'll even see in a couple that we have a couple of options still for large garage doors, for instance, to make sure things can get in. There's areas that we think it makes sense here, but we kind of like it over there. And so that's some kind of input we're very open to as well as we look at those designs. But overall, I think we're really excited that it honors where we are with these. And I can tell you that our board, and I know I have a couple board members here, Beth Pack is here from our Board of Education, if you just wave. Joseph Balinger from our board I know is here. Do we have any other board members here? I think that's all I saw at this point. So they're here, and I can tell you that we are very committed to make sure these are done to the absolute quality. Financially, we're in a really good spot. We have a contingency of at least $1.5 million left for the project to make sure that we get this done to the satisfaction that we all want. So from a dollar standpoint, we feel very good at where we're at. We're able to renovate some space. One of the issues that we do have as a district, we do have declining enrollment. And since I've been here, we're about 450 students down in the district. And if you just look at the demographics, our birth rates are getting lower and lower in Grand Traverse County. If you look at the census data we've had, we're getting older. We're not bringing as many young families in. And so we are seeing some empty classrooms and buildings, some of those things. And so we want to honor our space with our taxpayers at the same point, making sure that we have new space and that it's fully functional to what we want to do. So those are a lot of things we're looking at. And again, these things that we're doing like this, all the other things we're doing as we even look towards our next bond, what are things that are going to attract parents and families to Traverse City Area Public Schools? That is on our mind. And so we want to make sure this is top notch when somebody comes in and they're interested as a parent for their child, for STEM, for robotics, for mathematics, for so many of these areas, that we have top-notch facilities that rival any Metro Detroit, any Metro Grand Rapids, or for that matter, anybody in the United States as far as the quality of facility and matching the teaching staff and volunteers that we have here that I think are second to none. So we're excited about that. So excited to kind of walk these through with you. We'll take any questions you might have after, but I'm going to ask Heidi to lead us through. She's been with us as from the beginning, even earlier than me, and so we've been working together a lot with our team and the architects on this. And so at this time, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Heidi to walk us through both the Central High School and West High School STEM groups. Heidi.
This is probably the most fun part of my job, because those of you who know me know I was in architecture and engineering before I went into education, so this is like nirvana for me to present STEM labs. So I'm really excited about not only the process, but really the development of plans on both the east and west side. You'll notice they're very similar, and we looked really at how the plans would meet the needs of our growing, what we hope to be growing STEM program. So in each of the spaces, you'll see a clean lab that will include space for 3D modeling and printing, the laser cutters that we have within the programs. You'll also see computer-aided design and CAD labs. The computers in those labs they have always been, they've supplied us with high-powered computers to be able to do animations and renderings and things of that nature. So always have been able to do that. a meeting room for those meetings room. Robotics, you guys know how important those rooms are for just having those team leadership meetings. And from a teacher standpoint, those one-on-one or small group instruction spaces to use, so thinking about both those areas. You'll also see an innovation and manufacturing lab section, which includes space for the robotics program. And I'll show you in just a few seconds, just that perimeter that actually could, if you pushed everything away, could include really space for a full field, which is considered state of the art. There's also a small amount of storage, an IT room to accommodate the IT needs that we have in particular that are different for that space, and then a raw material manufacturing lab. So this plan is from the central side. You'll see this is TC Central, and you'll notice that, and I can use the laser, right? So the innovation and manufacturing lab space is right up front. So in front here, as it is preliminary planned right now, is a parking lot space area. You'll notice that there are garage doors or double doors going from one space to the other to help with that open concept, right? So as you're working in the manufacturing lab, a lot of times robotics and the engineering teachers know you have kids going back and forth between those two spaces. You'll also notice a dedicated CAD lab with access to that clean lab where those 3D printers would go. And then we have easy access to a raw material and manufacturing lab. This was one of the big requests that we had from people that are mentors from robotics, was to have a raw material manufacturing space due to noise. So like when you're working on the robots and having conversation in those innovation spaces, you still might have, you know, a CNC machine running that then you're talking over, right? So that kind of eliminates that problem, but still allows, you'll see the flexibility to open those doors and go back and forth if you need to. And again, you'll see that meeting space. And on centrals, you will see the addition of the bathroom section, which I think parallels, if we could see over here, I think there's another set of bathrooms in.
If you're in this building, one of the things we love about this is that it's front and center to the building. When you go down Milliken and you are looking at Central High School, it is the first thing you're going to see front and center. So when you see that, and where the restrooms are, that is essentially where the auditorium entrance is right now. So we love the fact that it's front and center, centerpiece. All the parking up front, it has its own entrance, so that we're not, needing to go into another part of the building to be able to come into it. At the same point, we do have doors from inside the building for kids during the school day to be able to come into those spaces when we use those. So, in some original designs, it was in the very, very far back part of the building that a lot of people don't get to see. And we also really like the idea of, we were able to take some original classroom space there, completely gut that out, and be able to add that. And so now it's an amazing facility with great parking, and we really want to make sure signage and all those things, when people come and they look at Traverse City Central High School, one of the first things they're going to see are these labs as we name them and sponsor all those different things. They are going to be a centerpiece here at Central High School, and we will have the same you'll see in a minute at West High School.
Yep. So you'll see auditorium space here, auditorium entrance, parking down here. And then this is where you see we've tried to maximize our current space that we have with remodeling with the existing addition space. So back here, this is the section that's existing right now and within proximity to the brand new space. This space is high bay, so in those innovation and manufacturing labs, it's high bay. You'll notice a stairway that goes up to an area that does supply some storage and will overlook that manufacturing and innovation space. Again, on the bottom, it identifies the total square footage for the STEM innovation and manufacturing labs at Central and the existing that we're doing the remodel on, which is at 2,300 square feet. And these are very preliminary, but ideas about what the exterior could look like at Central. Keeping in mind, you want to have natural light in there. You want it for sure to be a showpiece for STEM and robotics, and then have an opportunity for also have some wall space that you have for the equipment that we have on there.
So real quick, we would say, if you take it back quick, you know, one of the things I was talking to some of our kids on is we would love to be able to market and have our kids with, a lot of times you see vinyl window clings in those windows. They'll be able to show, you know, their team, their, you know, maybe even have their different awards they won each year could be swapped in and out. So again, it is going to be, robotics and our STEM programs are going to be front and center pieces advertised at the front of Central High School moving forward.
Yep, and with the availability of this window space, you'll also be able to hang those banners that we're so proud of that we keep bringing home for robotics. So that's another exciting piece. On the west side, it's designed a little bit differently, but you see exactly the same components included. One thing I'll also identify is this red dashed line is actually a perimeter of a full robotics field. So that space will be designed so that furniture in the center can be pushed aside and on wheels, so that flexibility of space depending on what is happening in that space. My guess is that we'll have multiple things happening in that space, sometimes at a time. So lots of opportunity for flexibility. Again, you see the garage doors between the spaces from the CAD lab and from the clean printer laser lab, as well as the raw material lab. You'll also see a dedicated meeting space and some storage just for classroom storage as far as that goes. But when you look at the designs, again, we look at existing space that's converted is 3,000. Overall space is 7,230.
And again, we still have to figure out a restroom, how we're going to do it. We have some ability in the hallway directly out, possibly. We're still working with the architects. We think that's a good idea to have some dedicated space for that. That way people don't have to run all the way through the building. We have different activities. The beauty of this is we have the ability to have it self-contained. Its own entrance off of the main parking lot where the main office is, all those things. And so we are really, really excited to be able to have this. If we're using it on Saturdays or Sundays for different groups, it's able to be its own self-contained area.
And then over here where you see that exterior garage door, that would be concrete area for those trailers to back in if they're dropping off the robot. You don't want to get it wet, right? You want to keep that dry. So overall, very similar in square footage, size, shape, purpose, design, layout, the flow between the spaces to help support that open planning concept, as well as help alleviate some of the noise issues you come in to some of these spaces. Exterior for west, this is a sample of what the exterior for west would look like again. Again, we take advantage of that high bay, which is so important not only for classroom experience, which we argue about all the time. He's afraid of throwing things
I don't
over
want
the
anybody
edge.
jumping off of the top.
I'm excited about you guys
yeah.
throwing things over the edge, but maybe that's not a good plan.
One of the things that we still, we have a lot of windows here, and we still have some different thoughts about how that might go all the way, kind of like Central's did, to go that entire corridor. We've got some work still to take a look, so would love some feedback on what you think about the windows in this part. I kind of like the idea more as you walk towards the office of having it all there, so again, you could have banners and the window cleans and those things and have it, because again, you're walking right to the front office now. That was all a new vestibule that's been completely redone. This is where students enter and exit, and parents and folks across enter that building. And so again, like Central, we want it to be that centerpiece as people are walking in to be able to see the amazing STEM facilities that we'll have.
And so this is the walkway up to that main entrance at West. So you see some windows, but we had talked about what those look like if they continue on.
In one of the conversations too, because we have the garage door, we are probably going to end up putting a garage door in the gym area over there as well. So if we do at West robotics competitions and stuff, it's easier to back trailers, those kind of things directly in with a garage door off of the gym as well. That's something we're going to look at in the future.
So overall, the facilities, will be rivaled by, they're high quality, top-notch facilities. There are very few places that you see the ability to allow for flexibility, and I'll go back one slide, but that flexibility in space and the use of spaces, multi-use spaces. So super excited about that, excited about the ability to offer really a high-quality STEM program and facilities, which, that's really the next step, those two together.
Yeah. And so our plan would actually be to, this summer, we would be closing off some sections of the building, and the plan is to break ground in September for both of the buildings, to actually go out for the bids starting this late spring and summer, to present that to the board for approval, and hopefully to have that groundbreaking, and then hopefully to be able to have the facilities open for the fall of 25 for our kids.
So very quick timeline, super excited about it. Excited for the students the most, for you guys to be able to experience the space. So thank you.
All right, so we're going to open this up for Q&A, and we'd like to make several requests. First of all, we know there's a lot of folks who are passionate about STEM that are here this evening and about education, and I wanted to make sure that any feedback or questions that you have respectful and constructive. I think that goes without saying, but in today's day and age, just erring on the side of caution. If you could ask one question at a time, and if you have multiple questions, wait for an opportunity for the microphone to come back to you. We will be walking the microphones around. We have folks who are viewing remotely, and so those of you who are online, feel free to type questions into the chat, and we'll read those off. And once again, please keep questions and comments focused on the STEM and robotics labs themselves, and we'll have a separate opportunity to talk about curriculum programs.
I want to mention, for curriculum in that element, I have superintendent's office hours every month. And every other month, I'm in person at Horizon Bookstore. You have the opportunity to be able to have those kind of curriculum. Any questions like that to just give some very good and dialogue that's just not formal, very informal to be able to sit. So I'd invite you, if you have some of those kind of things you want to talk about, I'm always available for it.
Questions? You got a question? Okay, you got one in the back.
Hello. I was just curious because, I really love that you thought about currently what's already in use, and I'm really loving the idea of the kiddos going through raw materials lab, the CAD lab, etc. I'm not overly familiar, so could you help me understand if this includes any additional lab equipment or materials and the furniture as well, or is this just the remodel of the building?
Yeah, we'll have some, we do have a lot already, but I think we see some different things of tables that are movable, on wheels, a lot more industrial kind of in that aspect with that. I think one of the things we really want to make sure to see is, we've talked a lot about a Haas mini CNC in each building that we don't have right now. As I've talked to teachers, and I know Heidi as well, that's one thing that we know is an industry standard. So we want our kids to be able to learn on that Haas programming pad. So we do have some elements like that we want to build in, and add some 3D printers to make sure we have enough, and you're not waiting on printing. So we have a lot of that as well that we'll be putting in. But we have a lot of equipment as well that's great, very usable equipment to also put in the facility.
I would say probably it to be 50-50 on equipment, because we've really worked the last few years with some grant dollars to be able to actually start picking away at the equipment. So it's probably 50% of the equipment we're using that's existing right now. The other 50 will come in new, and simply that has to do with the amount of space we had. We couldn't actually add those pieces, so 50-50 I would say.
We have a question online as well. Suzanne Galen asks, what are you doing for high school students is awesome. Any plans for high school students to mentor middle school STEM students, and for middle school students to mentor elementary students?
We're doing a lot of that. So for instance, Heidi talked, we do our Super Science Saturday. So if you want to talk just a little bit about that, we do. So we do have those, but again, open to looking at more as we get facilities and elements. So you want to talk just a little bit about
Sure.
those?
Yeah, Super Science Saturday is one that was founded by Raptor Robotics, and both robotics teams actually helped support that process, and it's bringing all those elementary kids, not only from TCAPS, but from around our region, in to help support that science and STEM education. So we actually have worked really hard. That's actually been a focus of ours, not only between our robotics teams this year, but how do we build that not only collaboration between teams, but also build up that mentorship program between the older students in high school and younger students. We are not there yet, but that actually is on our list of areas of improvement, and it's actually written in the robotics programming. Like, how are you going to build and expand your programs to elementary and middle school students? So robotics lends itself naturally to that, but there's other opportunities that we haven't actually explored yet.
And then we have things like our TCAPS Day of Coding, hour of coding, and those elements that we're infusing in as well. But a lot of those things take operational dollars different than bond dollars. A lot of people don't understand that we're able to use money for certain things by law, and so that's operational dollars. And we are in the bottom third of funding in the state of Michigan as a school. So it's really hard, from an operational, when about 85% of our costs are human resources, that it's really hard that we're not able to compete with a lot of downstate schools and others that just quite honestly have more funding to be able to do so many things. But we've got lots of different ideas, looking to stretch dollars to do that, so we're going to continue to try and attack that in every way that we can.
Yeah, we did have high school students go in for hourly code. I think they went to Montessori. And where else did you guys go? We went to a couple different schools. Maybe Willow Hill might have been another one, but they actually went into the elementary classroom to help with it.
Hi, Bob O'Hara from Newton's Road. John and Heidi, thanks for the presentation. This is very exciting and great stuff. It's good to hear that you are well set for funding for this, but anytime you start a planning process, doing new buildings, something gets left out at the end. What did you leave out that you would have liked to have had in this?
I just think that there's more and more of the larger machine stuff that a lot of our employers do, but those are large manufacturing facilities. So for instance, we'd love to have a full CNC machine, to be able to do, but the practicality of that and even the cost of materials and all those elements, that's really, really tough from that. I think some of the areas that, we will look at in the future is trying to partner maybe with some of our CTE partners to look, for instance, at, at some point you look at welding, some of the HVAC and things that might be involved with that. We're just not sure that that's, what this space will be used for. I think, with our Career Tech Center having so much of that and state of the art, it is done that way. I think we have some questions, like what's one of the things somebody put in for welding technology? We just don't know that that's the right fit for this. It's something we're gonna have to figure out. But again, we have plans and different things as we begin to turn towards our next bond and look at that, or maybe that's something we begin some of the emerging technologies with AI and so many of these things we're starting to see with virtual welders that we might be able to move down to our lower levels. So a lot of questions on that still that I think you don't want to overdo it and have a building called well that's so full you're not able to move around. So I think we'll learn still as we get into it for a couple of years, and this isn't the end all. We will continue, because as somebody mentioned to me, technology is going to change, as well over the next 3 to 5 years, that, that CNC mill that we get now, 7 years, probably is going to be old technology. That how do we look at replacing that? So I think that's something we're going to have to look at too.
I think we got a question online, and then we've got a couple more after that.
All right, we got Susan back again. Superintendent, what do you need your community to do to increase money for STEM locally?
Well, I think advocating with our legislators for specific categorical funding for especially lower level STEM. I'll tell you, our first robotics, our kids do an unbelievable job with their mentors and our staff members. Heidi, everybody that works with that program, we get very little from the state for that. How much do we get per team from Michigan?
Well, it depends. So like on the high school robotics, I think it's 6,000, and then if they get a little bit more, but not anything compared to what they fundraise each year.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking, it's easily a $30,000, $40,000 endeavor for us to be able to do that. So we put some district funds that we have towards it, but we sure would like some very specific categoricals that our legislators look at as we need to improve and have people working in these STEM fields and for our economy, for economic development. We really need some specific resources dedicated towards that. And the other thing I would think of, I think for us to start having conversations on is, as we have people that maybe want to look at doing donations and those kind of things, could we, for instance, work with maybe the community foundation to set up some type of endowment that actually guarantees some kind of funding and staffing, whether the state goes up and down with the economy, that keeps that consistent? I think that's one thing that I would love to sit with a group and explore about how we can have this consistent and know it's there for the future.
Yeah, my question is about the IT room, specifically at West. I didn't notice the size of the room at Central. I'm just thinking about going into the future, and I'm new to STEM, but I'm just looking at the size of the room and thinking about if there are, more and more, needs for different computers or towers and things. And maybe this is a question for you or some of the robotics students, but I'm just wondering if we're taking the time to do such a fantastic job on building this, if that room will really be big enough to house what's coming, number one, and then number two, would we need to think about things such as ventilation or air circulation in that corner?
And that is in this. So air conditioning, we're gonna have to put in those rooms, to keep those things cool. That is all in the plans. But I would appreciate if you put that note on a sticky note, for us to talk about capacity. One of the things to realize is, depending on where the location of these are in the building, there is some IT other rooms that are not that far away. So at Central, it was farther away than it was some of the servers and some of those, the different AP points for internet, those kind of elements. We're a little closer at West, but it's a good question for us to ask about the future. Is there enough capacity there? Is that something that, we need to look at, or do we feel satisfied that that's there? Really haven't had the chance, again, like I told you, 3 o'clock is when we're going to have this. So really to be able to sit down with Evan and our IT team, really have that discussion with our architects, that's something we're going to have to do. But I'd appreciate it, write that on a note so we have that.
Yeah, and we actually had that conversation when we first got these, and Evan was saying, well, I can tell you that we had this giant room for IT in the last time we did this, and now we're down to about half the space that we need to accommodate it. So, I mean, we aren't relying on the architects to tell us what we need for the IT closet or the space. That will come from, he has a company that he works with that helps to decide really how much space is needed and make sure we expand for growth. And I'm gonna go back to the previous question about funding. So, one of the things it's important for people in our area, I would say that in this area we are geographically disadvantaged, because coming from the Metro Detroit area where we were with the automotive companies all around there, we would have companies donate $10,000 at a time, right, to support, or we had Bosch as a sponsor and GM and Ford. And so the amount of work that these young people have to do to fundraise, to raise, to support their robotics program is completely different than what a lot of the schools have to do downstate. So that's an important note and almost a call out for, business and industries within our community on how they can support at a greater level, knowing that we want our kids' work not only focused on fundraising and building those relationships with business and industry and mentors, but also focused on the teaching and learning, that learning side of robotics, where they're not frantic about, how am I going to raise this money to get to the next competition? So to build something overall STEM-wise, not only robotics, but programmatically, that's sustainable.
We got a question back here.
To follow up on that IT question, I appreciate you bringing that up. I noticed, so at Central it's 95 square foot, and at West it's 75 square foot. So as the CEO of an IT company, I'm wondering who they're talking to about that, and if they'd like to talk to someone with experience to make that better, because that's maybe a closet worth, but if we're wanting to teach people, that would be beneficial to make it a space worthwhile.
And we have a pretty robust IT team. We have an entire data center that we run that's been designed. So we will rely on those same folks as we go through that element, but we'll have that professional help to make sure that we have it, really strong.
Is that who we talked to for 75 square foot and 95 square foot?
This is just preliminary.
This is preliminary, just from architect, literally, from today, from that standpoint. We haven't had a chance to give feedback on some of those components like that. That's exactly what this is for, to give thoughts like that from people and professionals, so we can take that back and have those discussions.
Sounds like a good thing to put on a sticky note.
Yep.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Jacob Bruch. I'm on West's team here, and so I gotta preface this by saying we are incredibly proud to be able to see these drawings and see them and imagine them. The renders are incredible, and really gives us some hope for the future. And so as this facility gets underway and when it's finished and it begins to be used, how will we see the classroom environments and team environments, which have two very different demands for the space? How are we going to see those facilities being cared for by the teams and class sizes alike? Because and as a second question, kind of to piggyback off that, how are we going to see this facility handle a larger robotics team? Because right now, each year we're seeing kids, 28, about 28 kids per year, and that's, plus or minus with mentors and faculty. So we're hoping to increase our size to 40, 50, and, to compete with teams downstate. We're looking to, it'd be amazing to get up to 100, where we're working on massive scales. It's like, how will we see this facility accommodate larger teams while also, treating the classroom on a different set of demands?
Well, I think we're going to have to rely on staff to really, talk about what that looks like. I've had the chance to go and see some different schools downstate that share space. I think we're going to have to make sure there's dedicated storage is one big thing for robotics teams to have versus, the AP, computer science from those elements. I think that, we probably are going to have to be a little bit more tidy, and working with partners that we're not, leaving things out at night for the class will have to be there that next day. At the same point, I think there will be an ability to have dedicated space. Fortunately, we have staff that work with both teams that are also teachers in the building, and so we're gonna, we'll have to work at that from that standpoint, I think. And then, size-wise, I can tell you, as we've looked at this space compared to what a lot of, the Novi's and the folks that have larger teams like that, they don't have space generally this big, down there from those larger teams. So we think that we're really, really good shape that way. But again, if we were to see more and more and more students, that's a great thing. It's something that we always have to look at for the future. If we had an opportunity and more students to expand, that'd be a great thing for us to look at in the future bonds from that standpoint, if we had that, But again, right now, unfortunately, with enrollment, we're just seeing less students. We're projected to have 190 less students in the district next year. So, from that standpoint, we just don't see the numbers that, are dictating that, but we would sure love to see that trend reverse from that standpoint.
And then I would add, as far as growing robotics, I came from Farmington where we had, I think when we left, 86, almost 90 students on a team. It's not so, I'm not sure if you want that. But it was a whole lot of fun, but that was a process of growth and expansion each year and making sure we're planning for that. Like, how are we using the spaces? What spaces do we need in addition to that? How do we work closely with the teachers that are using the space to make sure everybody gets what they need, right? So it's not a full-time robotics space. It's not a full-time TCAPS space. And I think a lot of the programming and the decision to put these at West and Central is really around that. Like, if you were to build a full robotics center outside of this, access for students, because our goal is, how do you get the most kids access to high-quality facilities and training? And by attaching them to the school, kids don't have to go to a separate location. There's opportunities to have 2 teams instead of 1, and that allows for collaboration across town, as well as a paced expansion. So this space, I've been in smaller spaces and worked with over 80 students. You can do it. This space is designed for that. And if we are so big we need to expand, then we're obviously in a really good space.
We got a question over here, but I'm going to also just note that we have about 16, 17 minutes left, and so we'll try to move questions along quickly here. Okay?
Hi, my name is Katie Innes. I actually have just 2 comments that I'm hoping that you'll take into consideration. The facility looks amazing, but the facility is only ever going to be as great as the people you have leading the program. And I just want to speak up for Chris Schaefer here, who has led students to Worlds every year for the past 4 years, my son being one of them. And he is a wealth of knowledge, experience, and passion that is above everything else. And so I just want to encourage you, if you want a successful robotics program, bring in someone that has that information, that passion and knowledge that can help that program grow, and who also has the world-class experience, literally, of the success and the trophies. And you had mentioned about having an off-site program. Currently, Chris runs his program off-site. So imagine if you bring that talent to your facility, and just with the reputation that he already has and the success that he's already brought, that alone is going to bring people into your program. So that's my first comment. My second one, real quick, is you had also mentioned in your opening about the decline in enrollment. I would argue that a lot of that decline is because families are choosing to homeschool their kids versus the public school system. One way that you could consider possibly bringing those families back into the fold is to offer this program to homeschool families as a buy-in option, to have these students that are being taught at home, to invite them into your school. They buy in, but they can be part of the program and learn and bring back into the school system. That might actually even increase your enrollment.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Andy Loughlin. I see things starting to gel with these plans and all that stuff. Is there a point in the near future where you're going to be able to brainstorm with people that would be using these facilities, stakeholders, whether they're industry, whether they're mentors and the like, to make sure that these things have the little details that will make this first class?
Yeah.
Will we have those opportunities in the future, very near future, by the looks of things, to be able to make comment on that?
Yeah, one of the things that, as I've gone through a couple, construction projects, we walk through constantly, as the process is happening. And, you might sit and go, boy, that corner right there, just if it was like this, we'd be able to put that machine in the way it is right now. So, you work with a construction management company, architects continually as you go. There might be a change order here or there that does some of that. So we will consistently work with folks in both buildings, our teaching staff, our mentors, to be able to have those thoughts as we go through, to make sure that, again, that we're not missing anything, that one little thing that could make a great difference, we want to make sure doesn't happen.
It's cheap to do it now. Change orders are expensive.
It is, but sometimes when you sit and look, and the way it looks on paper, sometimes that corner isn't quite. So you do try to. I absolutely 100% agree. You try to avoid it as much as possible. At the same point, I'm not going to sit if it can make a little difference, and we are down that road to just say, well, sorry, we're too late. I'm not going to do that. I want to make sure it's right from that aspect.
Right here.
All right. So it's been a 10-year bond for this project, correct? So why do we think that we haven't seen progress or plans until now?
Well, first of all, I think COVID had a lot to do with construction. If you look at our Montessori building, we are well over a year behind on that. So getting a lot of construction materials, the architect, those elements, it hasn't moved as fast, all construction across the district from that standpoint. Can't really speak to before. I've only been in my 3rd year. I came, very mid-project from that standpoint when Montessori was started already. But at this point, we are finally through Montessori. We take occupancy in about 2 weeks. And so we're able to move this forward because the problem is you only have so many people that do bricklaying and so many electricians and they're really, really hard to find right now. So there are times with some of our projects we put out bids and had nobody bid. And so we had to go put it back up for bid and try and find people. So that's one of the elements at this point that I do believe probably put it behind a year. The Montessori project was probably a big piece of that. But at this point, we're able to move forward to be able to have that, moving. And there are other things that are still after this, but we've made sure that this point is prioritized to make sure that we're ready to break ground and get this thing done.
I was at a meeting in December at the board meeting where it was discussed there was money taken out of the bond fund for the STEM program. Is that going to be replaced? Because I'm still confused about that.
So the biggest part of this is when we did this, in the original plans, especially with the west ones, there was space that was renovated. We were able to take some existing classroom space, about 2,500 square foot, and incorporate it into this. Same with at Central High School, we were able to take about 2,200 square foot and renovate that so we didn't have to build new. So when we look at our entire bond project and what we can do for kids, we have lots of different things that are on that list that we wanted to finish off in making sure everybody has high quality facilities. And we were able to accomplish that with this. That being said, we still have $1.5 million that we have set aside in contingency to make sure if for some reason our construction costs, those things are too high, as we bid these things out, we've got the money to make sure we're able to do what we're showing on the paper to be able to do with all that renovated space. But no, we had a pretty good idea with doing the renovations of what the renovations would save us by having that square footage from that standpoint. We had that discussion long ago with the construction manager and architects.
Okay. Oops, and we've got another question over here.
On that same line, so the number was 2 million that went into AstroTurf. Is this then, what is the portion of the bond that's actually going forward to renovate these spaces and build new spaces? Is it 1.5 or is it a 5 million?
Right now we're about $7.5 to $8 million is what they're identifying right now for this with the renovated space.
And with the follow-up to that is these plans you say came back today.
Yep.
So knowing that to the student's question, this was a 5-year bond and we're now or 10-year bond and we're halfway through that process.
Yep.
Does that mean that these drawings were asked to, let's create them and start the community conversation after the community got upset about a record or a ticker article?
No. This has been placed since I've got here, and finally we've gotten the architects. One of the things is, because the way that the bond funds come in, we have a cash flow. Yeah, we have a cash flow. So when you look at the Montessori building that had that money, we had to wait until we got close. We have a bond sale in May that happens, and so we can't start using money off of that sale until about 90 days before it to be able to pay for the architect, pay for those things to be able to do that. So we are now on our next, we still have another bond sale yet even after this for cash. So right now we finally got our cash flow money in to be able to pay for this to all be done and have this done moving forward. At that point when Montessori, we used all of the money plus the contingency to be able to do Montessori, stayed in budget, but we didn't have any extra cash flow to be able to pay for these services to be able to be done. And so we're just now able to have that money with the May sale coming and have that, and we're able to pay forward to all the services to be moved forward.
Okay, we got a question over here.
Is this, okay, so from what you're just explaining with the Montessori, that there wasn't enough funds to continue. So if you're redirecting monies to other areas before you even know if you're gonna have enough to cover everything you need, not to mention that there's a lot of things that we need to buy as far as equipment to get this up and running, right? It just seems a little premature if we are diverting monies to other areas, if it was supposed to be designated for STEM, that maybe we need to hang on to that and see what is left when it's all said and done. Then if there's extra monies, we can divvy things out into different directions.
And we already have some of that. So we, for instance, part of it was our transportation facility and that being done. We got that back, and that came $1 million under budget. That was just recently, we got those back about a month ago. So we know we have the cash flow still to make sure we're able to do this project right. The board is fully committed to make sure this project gets done right, gets done what's promised for it, so that we have that facility that was promised.
I'm Road. My voice. I'm Ronan. I'm on the robotics team. I'm wondering what considerations you put in place for safety in facilities like dust collection, high phase power outlets all over the place because we're going to need it. Hand washing stations, we use grease a lot.
Yep. And a lot of that for code, we have to put in with building code from that aspect. But all those HVAC, air conditioning, again, in parts, we're talking right now, what that looks like to be able to have. So all of that's going to have to be in play in the HVAC system. That we will have the architects, they've all taken that into play. Okay. And then we'll get into very specifics as we continue moving forward with the plan.
Okay.
Hi, Joan O'Neill. I'm a parent, and I appreciate the effort gone into this. I know we weren't supposed to talk about it, but I do want to raise my hand and be part of the conversation and make sure it doesn't end here about programming for STEM. I've coached robotics at the elementary level. These kids are begging for it. I have a middle school child, nowhere to go for robotics except for seeking independent coaches. They want to represent their school too. So please let me be part, have me be part of the conversation.
Would love for you to come to one of my coffees, sit and have the discussion.
Oh, I did talk to a board member a couple weeks ago.
We'll come to mine so I can sit and have it.
You've got them all together like this, so that if you, in safety considerations, need to keep your school closed, you still have open areas for robotics. Am I saying it correct? That's good planning, I think, just because I think kids are going to be using this off hours, weekends, that kind of things, and it's good to have it encapsulated like that. Good design.
Okay, over here.
Hi, Christy Halverson, parent and actually architect. In that regard, I'm questioning, it sounds like there hasn't been any reach out to the students that are using this space, and I'm quite surprised at that as an architect that the group hasn't been walked through the space. Groups asked questions. I think it's a little late in the process, but I think it's important you get their input.
So I think a lot of that happened early on in the process with it. I think at this point when we have these, that's part of the night. We've invited the kids. We'll continue to have that. Talk with the mentors, that element to make sure that it's functional from that standpoint for them.
So if there was extra money left over after allocating everything for this, why wasn't that put towards facilities at, say, the middle schools and elementary schools? Why was it sent to other places other than
there was money and a lot of different projects put in. So there was athletics put in. There were those things in there from that element. There are things that had certain costs to it. Some were over, some were under from that standpoint. So we actually have to plan with Treasury. If we're going to do something at the middle school, like a STEM lab, we actually have to, when the bond is done, we have to sit with Treasury and say, we want to do this in this building from that standpoint. So that's something in a future bond here. If we want to look at the middle school ones, we can sit and say to Treasury, here's an area we would like to do in this building. They have to approve when you do stuff in a building and touch it per your language that you have those plans all to them when you do it, just as general thought from that standpoint. So I think if that's something we want to look at with middle school, I think we could do at this point still. I think it probably is going to take additional addition or a complete renovation of some areas. It's going to be a large area. We really don't have any of those large areas right now at the middle school level to sit and look at with that. So I do think that's something that as we sit in the next one, so our board is already beginning the discussion of the next bond for a possible August 2024, that we sit and have those conversations about for middle school. And we're even looking at what might we be able to look at. There's some grants and different things, even Verizon is starting to sponsor. We've had the chance to see it some elementary schools. What would that begin to look like so we can move forward with that?
Hi, my name is Lisa, and I am actually a parent of multi-sport children, and so they don't participate in STEM. So I just think it's important that I have a voice in that there has to be encouragement for collaboration and education on both sides. And these invitations to your coffee conversations are extremely important. Attending and listening to board meetings and knowing how the process works is extremely important. Getting those board members to engage in the conversations with these students is extremely important. So I just want to raise my hand and say we got to just keep talking. and work together collaboratively and show up when you're invited. So everybody being here and seeing all these kids here, that is stand up in my mind, and that means this is an important conversation. So everybody that worked really hard to come here tonight and cancel plans with their family and organize this conversation, I appreciate all of you, and thank you.
And we're down to our last question. Oh no.
Someone's going to have to go after me. Promise. You're going to want somebody to ask a question after me. I'm Tara Hochstetler. My son Jackson just spoke beautifully. I'm just going to say what I'm thinking, and I think I'm probably not alone. It feels, as a parent of a robotics kid, that the money is being taken away from the nerds and given to the jocks. That is how you're exactly right. I haven't been to a bunch of meetings, so I take your point, and I will definitely take your advice, and we'll go from there. That's kind of how it feels. And I have not heard you answer the question of why was $2 million taken away and given to AstroTurf instead of being redistributed within the STEM program. And from Jackson's question, what I heard was, well, we have to go through a different set of rules to figure out how to give it to the middle school. And I think I would love to know how come you can take it from one department and give it to another, but you can't give it to another middle school within the same type of program. Is that too big of a question to answer right now?
No, but you can't use it for operational dollars. You can only do bricks and mortar kind of things with this money. It's bond money. It's not a millage that used to in 1994 when they changed the rules. You can't use it for operational to pay, for a trip, for a coach, for materials. Any of that is not allowed under the language of the state of Michigan with a bond.
But that's not what I'm asking.
So what are you asking specifically?
I'm asking, why are the brick and mortar funds being distributed to athletics instead of being used on STEM when they were originally designated to STEM?
Because we were able to do some renovations to be able to save some money by being able to take these different rooms that we have, use that footage rather than having empty rooms sit in buildings. Because we do have empty rooms sitting over the place with less enrollment. Use the bond dollars wisely for that to renovate those spaces. And when we have that, we had some other things that were over cost that were not able to be completely funded from that standpoint, because all the athletic facilities and those things were also promised in the bond to taxpayers.
And I haven't asked you.
Yep, and so making sure that we could do everything we could for all kids and still get the opportunity to have the same kind of space, the same great element, be able to utilize that space. That was the decision that was taken, and that's what we did with that, to make sure that we didn't just have rooms that sit empty. So I don't think from that standpoint we want to be cleaning rooms empty, those kind of things. And so when we looked at this, if you look at the 5,000 square foot we were able to renovate, that's the difference in that cost we were able to do.
So, just a quick follow-up, are you saying that you found a way to do it more cheaply and efficiently and effectively, and that left some funds left over that can be used for other things?
That is correct. And we still have that now. So when we're looking at our projects that we have, when we look at transportation, we're $1 million under what we were originally. That's something we're going to be able to put into something here moving forward. We still have some different things along the road here that the board is still continuing to look at to say what are some few projects, some things here, that we could do to make sure that we're optimally using those funds. And so the board will continue to look at that. There's still money there. There's still, a sale that's happening. There's a smaller $10, $11 million sale that happens last year. There's still some decisions and things on from that standpoint. So it's just trying to take those dollars and spread them across as far as we could to make sure that we have great facilities for everybody. That's our goal of what we're trying to do.
And on that note, I know there was a number of questions that folks still had, and I'm sorry that we're out of time. I would encourage all of you to take up the opportunity, speak with Dr. Brian Wagner, with the board. For me, reaching out, and they've been very responsive. They've been, it's been a great exchange. And I would encourage all of you to keep the discussion going and I want to thank you all for coming out tonight, and appreciate Dr. Van Wagner and Heidi for coming and spending the time this evening. Oh, I apologize. I tell you what, we'll take that offline. But I know we need to. We'll have to. Yeah, we really do need to close down here. The Opera House has been very gracious and let us going about 5 minutes over already, and so thank you everyone for coming out this evening. We look forward to continuing that dialogue. Oh yeah, obviously, I talked about it. So, yeah.